Welcome everyone to the Basement Wargamers Grudgecast for February. I am your fearless leader, Jared Cannonball Nyman. Thank you for joining us. Let's go around our digital roundtable. With me this evening, I have the Billest of Wests.
The Billest of Wests.
A billion of them. We also have Young Master Chris Murphy.
Hey!
We have Carl El Salvadorian Thunder.
You used to call me Spicy Meatball, man. I think I preferred that one.
Muy Chiante.
Oh, God, my ears.
Caliente, whatever. I will speak Spanish. And the other West, El Jefe.
Hey.
Joining with us as well, Chaos Jesus, Sam.
Hey, everybody.
And last but not least, our fearless leader, Sean Feather.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
All right, guys, thank you all for joining us for our February podcast. We have a fairly full agenda of items to go through. The first thing we're going to look at on our agenda is the Basement Wargamers 2,000-point Rogue Trader Tournament. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Sam, who ran the thing. I played in it. Sean, I know you played in it. I'm trying to think. Carl played in it. Carl played in it. And I think that's it for those of us on that played or had some function therein. So, Sam, give us the deets.
Sure. So this was on the 17th of February. This was BWG's first Rogue Trader tournament that we're going to be doing hopefully monthly, leading up to a big 2-day GT that we're going to have July 21st and 22nd this year, which we're very excited about. So this was in Phoenixville over at Gamers Heaven, and I'm really impressed. So this was our first tournament that we had in quite a while, and we threw up the event, and it sold out in a day. We ended up getting some additional spillover space, thanks to Andrew and everybody over at Gamers Heaven, who worked really hard to accommodate all of us. To give us a total of 10 tables. Yeah, so we ultimately had 18 people show up. A couple people from Delaware, some people from Philly, from a bunch of different clubs. We had Wobbly Modelers, we had Page and Icehouse Warriors, and people from Burks and BWG, of course. So, yeah, really, really, really great turnout.
Nice. Who ended up winning the big one?
So first place was Tyler Weimer from the Wobbly Modelers. I believe he was playing guard. He may have had a little bit of Space Marines in there, but I know he had guard stuff. Second place was Kyle Loader playing Eldar from Icehouse. And then third place, I believe, was Sean Rett, also from Icehouse. And I didn't, unfortunately, get a look at what he was running, but I believe it was an Ultramarines list.
Sam, I was actually able to play both Tyler and, I'm sorry, who was the third place guy that you mentioned from Icehouse?
Sean.
Sean, yeah. He was running a Ghouliman Razorback list. So I think like 5 Razorbacks, Ghouliman, a couple of Scout squads, pretty much what you'd expect to see, and then a Whirlwind randomly with a character in there that made it actually worth a damn, even though it wasn't that great. And yeah, I got to play him and Tyler, so it was nice to duke it out with 2 guys who ended up in the top 3. Actually, one against, not Tyler, the other dude, but, he eked me out on points in the end. But Tyler was a really, really strong player, dude. I was very impressed with him. He was, you were right, running Imperial Guard, gun line, so like 3 layers of screens of infantry squads, a bunch of mortars, I think 4 or 5 Lehmans. Pask included a Valkyrie, I think it is, with the 2 Punisher cannons, and then Captain Smash, Mephiston, and some Scout squads to finish out the Blood Angels. And good God, was that a ferocious list. He was going off of, I think, the the list that performed really strongly at LVO, and made some minor tweaks, but was not expecting Mephiston to put up so much anti-psyker and clutch kind of melee when he actually needed to. So it was really fun playing them. Both really good guys.
Dude, Mephiston.
What did you end up feeling? What'd you end up fielding, Carl?
So I was doing my Alpha Legion Chaos. I had 2 units of Obliterators, Terminator Bomb, a Sorcerer, Demon Prince. Pretty standard fare for me. I did have my Leviathan Dreadnought, so Grab, Flux, Bombard, and Claw. It was a pretty standard list for me. 2 things that I added that I maybe wouldn't normally have if I didn't want to go fully painted was the Mauler Fiend and a unit of Bikers. And also, I think I had some tactical squads in there. So it wasn't the strongest list I ever put together, but it was a lot of fun to play, and I was able to hold my own against Tyler for the first couple of rounds until he just ended up overwhelming me with those Lehmans. If you screen those things out, man, and they're firing twice, there's not too much that can stand up to 4 full turns of shooting from those things if you can't crack them.
Yeah. Well, even though you may have not brought necessarily the strongest list because you elected to bring some really nice looking models, it ended up paying off for you in the end, since you ended up winning our best painted of the day.
That's right. Well, and thank you, Sam, for the award. Your check is in the mail. We'll split that 50-50. So the scam has gone according to plan.
Good. It's really good stuff, especially the conversions on your bikes really stood out.
Thanks, man. Well, it's good to rep Chaos, especially when 2 out of the top 3 were Imperium. Chaos of BWG players. We gotta start getting our shit together. We're getting wrecked out there.
Well, you actually wrecked me in the tournament. You tabled me on my lame, Carl. It was a rough battle, man. I couldn't make a charge to save my life. Whew, man, you have a tough as nails army.
Thanks, man. You just had some real shit luck on those charges at a deep strike, though. There was that could have been a very different game if you got first turn and were able to get those 2 Demon Princes to connect.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're a stellar player. Your army always looks great. So, next time I'm sure you'll be in the top 3.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
I had the benefit of playing the second place guy, Kyle, in my last match. Really nice guy. He had a Ynnari Craft World Eldar mixture list with a metric truck ton of Dark Reapers. And and a boatload of warp spiders as well. It became interesting. Oh yeah, it became interesting by turn. I want to say 3. Everything I had was hitting on 6s, basically, to shoot.
Oof.
Wow.
Yeah, yes, that was a little rough. Between all the Ynnari stuff, because he used a Lightalk for a lot of things. Just all the combinations of everything. I played guard. I played pure guard. It was a brigade detachment, the big one, and a spearhead of Lehman Russ tanks. And yeah, I couldn't connect too much. It was rough, but really good list. Really nice guy to play with. It was a good environment. I got to play Sean my first round, which was fun. It was a good opener, at least, to play someone I knew. And we had a good game.
I also had some pretty crap luck. I forgot half my rules because I've been playing so much Age of Sigmar. And I forgot. I screwed myself out of 3 or 4 command points game 1. I'm like, man, where are all my command points gone? Yeah, I was playing down half of all of my rules.
Damn.
Oh well.
Jared, when you played the Eldar dude, was he running Shining Spears to break your lines, or was it just you were having so much trouble hitting on those 6s that you weren't able to crack any of the Reapers? What was giving you the most trouble against him?
So he did run Shining Spears. The big thing was Warp Spiders, and he had 2 Wave Serpents to get guys around a lot of spots. And just it was a total of, there was 1 9-man squad of Reapers and then 3 3-man squads of Reapers.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the 9-man squad for forewarned.
The 9-man was Ynnari.
Yep.
And then the 3-man I think were something else. But just the combination of all that and the strength of the guns, I mean, the Reaper always hitting on the Dark Reaper is always hitting on 3s. Their strong gun is I think strength 8, a flat 3 damage.
Strength 8, AP -2, 3 damage a pop.
3 damage is insanity. And then the Exarch having the Tempest Launcher, which is basically better than my Wyverns.
Yeah, it's super good.
2d6 shots, strength 5, AP -2. It was just running through stuff. So I was able to kill a decent amount of things. I'll say that. And if it got anywhere remotely close to me, I was able to massacre the shit out of it. but just between trying to get points and everything, it was hard for me to try and get points off of him, just because a lot of the ITC bonus point items weren't really working in my favor at all. Which that's my own fault, but I think just trying to get around it that way. It's definitely something I'm going to have to check into for a different list next time. I think I screwed myself in building my list a little bit more, but that's good to know for next time.
I will say though, those lists, those missions were awesome.
Loved them.
I think, yeah, it was awesome. So Sam, great job on that. I think just
Absolutely.
next time, if you maybe some more toner ink in your printer, and then we're great.
Or maybe labels or something.
Yeah.
They were a little hard to read.
Replace the cartridge. But yeah, those were the ITC championship missions, and it seemed like it took everybody, around for the most part to figure it out. Thankfully, I think the way things worked out, people that were familiar with them already got paired with people that weren't, so that pretty much kept people on the right track, I think, through the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it went well. I liked the mission patterns. I liked the secondary objectives. I thought it was really cool. And knowing them now for next time, it'll make things a lot easier, I think, for all of us to go from there.
So I like that format because for me it reminds me of what I really liked about 7th, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but one thing I really did dig about 7th was that you had to be mindful and cognizant of so many different factors of the game at every stage of it to perform well, and that's what I feel I like about the ITC missions is that there's so many layers, so much depth to the points you can and have to be scoring to pull it out in the end that it's that's being mindful is a skill of in itself in that format.
Right.
Definitely,
Plus, you can also play your own game. You don't have to be going for the same exact kind of objectives your opponent is. So every game can be different. So I really like that aspect. So these missions are great.
So you said we're going to be doing these, monthly?
Yeah, I believe we're going to be doing the third Saturday of every month is going to be an RTT 40K event. Eventually, we're going to try to...
Third Saturday?
Yep, third Saturday of every month. And then, obviously, we're going to skip May, because on the May 19th is Burke's Spring Assault. Yep. And then in July, the 21st and 22nd is the same. That's the third weekend. And that's when we're running our Summer Slaughter GT. We're going to try eventually to get on the first weekend or first Saturday of every month to be an Age of Sigmar event. But we haven't really gotten a lot of that off the ground just yet, and it's mostly because we don't really have a lot of the terrain for it. A lot of it would come out of personal collections. I think we're going to try to start out small, maybe do 8 or 10 person tournaments at first, and then slowly work up. I'd like to get at least 12, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. So the next one then would be March 17th, if I'm looking at this correctly, for the 40K tournament.
Yep, March 17th will be our next 40K tournament, and
that's Mechanicon, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mechanicon is the same weekend, I believe.
Yeah. Kind of thinking we might want to move it to the next weekend, just so we don't conflict. Because I know some of our guys, like Carl, are hoping to go to Mechanicon.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, if you have it the same weekend, maybe
I
can actually have time to sign up this time.
This is true.
Yeah, maybe do a smaller tournament.
Yeah.
People who don't normally, sign up for this kind of thing.
Well, we don't want to take anything away from our fellow community member with Tony. I mean, he's got a great event, and he's been doing it for years. So it's something we'll take under advisement. We'll see what we can do. Try to make everybody happy.
So
cool.
Speaking of tournaments. This was something we've actually we talked about in another podcast. Tournament etiquette, things like being honest with, or I shouldn't say being honest, but fully explaining your rules and strategies when people ask you about them. What do you guys think makes good tournament or general playing etiquette?
I think for me, the nuance, what's interesting about this question is it's not so much about how you answer the question, because you have to answer the question truthfully, right? Like,
Right.
being a dick is being dishonest, right? That's what it boils down to. I think the real interesting piece is like how you as the opponent ask the questions, right? So like, for example, if I ask my opponent, hey, what's the threat radius on that demon prince with wings, he could very easily say 12 inches. But if I say, hey, does that demon prince have anything that allows him to move more than 12 inches, then my opponent would say, oh yeah, he has warp time, or oh yeah, this, you know what I'm saying? So like that, and that is an example of something that's like, the etiquette's the same on his end, but I think that, and maybe he might not tell me that the demon prince has warp time, and I would contest that. I think, depending on how you phrase the question, your opponent should be a little bit, I think, surrendering of the details of their rules, even though I didn't ask, hey, what is his psychic power, and does it allow him to move an extra 12? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think just being honest with the abilities you have, but not necessarily telling them what the synergies are. Like, you tell how everything works, but not necessarily, you give them the recipe, but you don't let them take a taste.
Well, shouldn't that
Until
all
you
be
make them take a taste.
that should all be covered, in the first, 5 minutes of the game. Give your opponent a rundown of what your army is, and then, hand them your army list and say, hey, here's what I'm running. They should be able to also see it for themselves if they see certain powers. I mean, I understand that, not every power is listed out exactly what it does on your army sheet, but for the most part, people should be cognizant of what is a competitive army list and what their opponent's going to bring to bear.
So that's where it comes down to understanding how to ask questions on the table. I can look at your army list. I play in a lot of events. I can look at your army list and more or less get the gist of it just by seeing what you wrote out. But I will ask questions during the game, much like Carl gave an example of, which is like, do you have anything that lets this unit move more than its normal move? Do you have anything that lets this thing advance and charge, etc.? Things along those lines, where rather than me asking about specific abilities on the data sheet or specifics about the unit, I'm asking broad questions like, do you have anything that'll let that move in advance? That could be stratagems, psychic powers, and so on. And it really is then, on the opponent to answer that honestly, which they're, I'm going to say, ethically obligated to do. If I ask you a question, you can't just be like, I'm totally going to lie to this guy and not tell him about this thing, and then get him real good in a minute after he's already taken his turn.
Fooled you.
Yeah, that's a good way to make people not want to play with you.
So I do my best to, before a game, I show my opponent my army list, and I generally ask them, are you familiar with what my army does? And if they say yes, then fine. We're done talking. If they say no and they don't ask any follow-up questions, great. We're just going to keep moving on. If they say no and then ask questions, then I explain what all the units do, but I might not necessarily explain combos that are available unless they ask follow-up questions.
Hey,
so
what
give
does
them
that captain do?
right. Give them the answers to the questions that they asked. You don't have to necessarily give them more than that, but for sure, be forgiving. And ultimately, if your army can't survive, your opponent knowing what it does, probably ought to revise that army.
You probably should play a different army.
It's true.
Maybe move on to heavy gear.
Ooh. Or just play a simpler game like Age of Sigmar.
Well, the other like big side of etiquette that is like now in the court of public opinion, thanks to LVO, which is kind of like this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like this like gotcha play style, or this idea of like baiting your opponents to move past a certain phase, or kind of playing a hard line when they are call things out of sequence. Because that to me is like, I'm glad to see, and I think we all know the story at this point, right? But between I think it was Tony Grappando and Nick Nanavati and how all that went down at LVO. But it's interesting to see, like, Clearly, the community is like, yeah, that shit was not cool. You got your comeuppance, great. But I think it opens up a whole can of worms where it's like, well, that's a big gray area there, right? So it's like if you skip your psychic phase and you've shot 3 guns, and now you're saying you want to go back and do your psychic phase, like, I personally don't feel like I'm under any obligation. I'd probably 4-up it on a die roll, but like you're in a totally different environment there where it's like a gray zone with no easy answers, I think, and that's where it gets squishy.
The way I look at it, like if they skip their phase and go into their other phase on their own, like if they're halfway into their other phase, that at a certain point you can't let them go back and change things. But like if you're baiting people into skipping their phases, then that's kind of a dick move.
I think what's tough with it too is you really have to know what is the intention of everything that's going on. Because from my understanding, if we take that event in particular and we, it's been cross-sectioned about 1,000 times over, so I don't want to go into too much detail with it. But my understanding was the other individual, Alex, I believe his name was, who unfortunately got called out on the out of order thing. My understanding was he was trying to move faster due to time limits because the other player had taken an exorbitant amount of time during their first turn. And I think when you look at something like that where someone's trying to level out the playing field and get the time frames right again, and then you see something like that happen, that's when it comes down a lot of ways to intentions. And I think although it's difficult for any of us to really mark down, okay, this is good behavior versus bad behavior, at the end of the day, you kind of know in your soul if you're being an asshole or not. I think. I think for a lot of people,
absolutely.
I mean, you may not say it to yourself, but in the back of your mind, you may think, you know what, this is kind of a dick move, or maybe you think about it later on and realize I'm being an asshole.
Well,
And sometimes you're able to catch that early, like during the game, and you're like, I'm being an asshole. No, take your turn. And sometimes you don't realize it until later on. You get caught up in the moment. And you think, maybe that was kind of an asshole thing I did.
Well,
I think it.
I'm going to go back to, and I know I keep talking about this game, but only because it's the biggest asshole-ish game I've ever played, was the tournament back in December for Shorehammer, where the guy played the second round. We were playing quickly throughout the whole game. We got to the last round with 5 minutes left, and then he started slow playing me and asking me to show him every single solitary rule that I'd been using throughout the entire game, so that he could try to have that one extra turn. I was at the bottom of the round, and I wouldn't be able to finish my turn out.
Yeah, I mean that's AI. That's asshole intention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what we're gonna?
Absolutely.
Is that what we're gonna call it now? AI.
AI. That's simple AI.
I'm okay.
Asshole
with
intention.
Yeah, I like it.
Woo.
Not doing it, but the term for it.
Yeah, the term.
So I'm interested to know. I know Sam, Carl, you guys play tournaments pretty regularly. Carl, we got your take on that. Sam, what are your kind of thoughts on this event? Obviously, without rehashing everything that happened all over again that we talked about a lot. But what's your kind of thought on this?
I'm generally pretty forgiving with my opponents in tournaments. If my thinking is it's your turn, I don't really get to interrupt that. So the fact that you moved a couple things slightly out of order or so on is really not consequential to the way the game goes at all. And I'll let you do that. And the only time I'll get maybe a little bit specific is where there are some occasions where the specific way that you move things around in tight quarters might matter. Things like that. I'll ask you to do that the right way. But generally speaking, I'll let things go. You get into your shooting phase part way, and you realize you forgot to cast spells. Most of the time, I'll let you go back and do that. Where I change on that is, if you were a dick to me.
Oh yeah, then everything's just thrown to the wind.
The gloves come off at that point, and I don't allow any takebacks. As soon as my generosity has been snubbed like that, then it's on.
Yeah, I think that's a solid way of thinking in terms of that. Do unto others dick unto others as they have dicked unto you.
And I guess my final word on it would be, just because the rules might allow you to do something, but sportsmanlike conduct should be the guiding principle.
I stack rhinos up back to back against a against a terrain piece to keep them out of line of sight, right?
Yep. So any other thoughts on different etiquette items with regards to a tournament? And the reason I think we focus more on tournament because etiquette for the friendly game is just that. All a friendly game is at that point is etiquette, is not being a douchebag to the other guy because it's a friendly game. So I think etiquette takes more of a role in tournament play style, and that's where you get more of the gray area.
Well,
Any other thoughts on that piece?
I think etiquette also applies to friendly games too. I mean, I'll admit it. One thing that grinds my gears for friendly games is I'm just like, hey, I want to play a friendly game of 40k, Age of Sigmar, whatever. And then somebody says, oh yeah, I'll play you. And then they ask me, what army are you playing? Hey, what army are you playing? Hey, what army are you playing? Hey, what army are you playing?
I agree. I agree with you too on that one, Bill. It's like, hey, does it matter? Because it kind of sounds like you're about to start list tailoring to me.
Yep.
Oh, see,
Sean,
I don't
did you
mind
have
that.
something? Okay.
Most of what I do is I actually just ask my opponent in a friendly game, what do you want me to play? I don't care what I play. I'm here for a friendly game.
See,
And
I like that approach.
like if you tell me what you want to play against. I've got elves and demons. Tell me what you want to fight against. If I table you with my elves, I'm sorry. Like if I table you with my demons, I'm sorry.
But you said you wanted to play
pick the
that.
army. Yep,
See, I like that
exactly.
approach though. But it's like when somebody you're playing, they ask you once, and hey, what army are you playing? You don't get back to them for whatever reason, or it takes you an hour or two, and then they ask you like 4 more times in that hour what army you're playing. That grinds my gears.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it just goes along with list tailoring. You don't want to list tailor. I mean, to a point, and I'll only point this one thing out. Although I'm against list tailoring, at the same point in time, if you built a list thinking, oh, friendly game, and this kind of harkens back, I'll say, more to 7th edition, where there was chances you could come up against things where you could literally do nothing. Like, if you, for instance, had no anti-air whatsoever because you're thinking, okay, this is a friendly game, maybe they'll bring a flyer or something, and then they bring an entire flyer list, then, yeah, maybe there's a little give and take there of, hey, by the way, I'm taking an all-flyer list, or I'm taking an all-this list. Now, as kind of an equal footing counterpoint, I don't think you have as much of that in this edition, but I think still, if you're doing a friendly game and doing some kind of weird eggs all in one basket kind of thing where it could be ridiculous if the opponent has no idea what they're coming into, I think maybe there's a degree of you should probably give them a hint.
Hey, I want to try out this list that has 15 flyer runs. You're cool with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Something like that. I think giving a hint in that way is sometimes is the reverse friendly game etiquette.
Yeah.
Of saying, hey, I'm going to try this weird thing. I'm going to take an all tank army. Okay. Now, if the person just had random infantry, that might not do as well. Now, 8th edition, though, nothing matters. So, yeah, you could probably still do well with an all infantry list against a tank list. So it all depends. But, yes. So, any other thoughts on tournament gameplay? I know we have some stuff coming up.
I think we've thoroughly dominated that topic.
Excellent. So with that, we do have some new book releases coming out and some new model releases and all kinds of rumor mill stuff. Just to kind of throw down a few, Legions of Nagash, Malign Portents, Thousand Sons, Daughters of Khaine.
And these
they talked about elf pirates, and then there's also underwater elves. I mean, there's a ton of shit that's just flying through.
And Tau. Tau's coming out soon too.
And Tau, yeah, and fish people. So fish elves and fish people. It's great. So, what are you guys most excited for out of this long list of new items that seem to be coming across the horizon?
I don't play any of those.
Well,
excellent.
Yeah,
so
Legions of Nagash and Malign Portents and Thousand Sons are already out.
Yep.
For AOS, Legions of Nagash, I've played against it twice now. really good boost to the army as a whole. A lot of the Flesh Eater Quartz items that were in that didn't really transition. Flesh Eater Quartz is still its own army, but it really didn't see any major bonus to that.
So they got left out of the Legions of Nagash book because they're kind of their own thing.
Right.
But the cool thing is that
Because they're Bretonnians?
Sure.
Yeah, they are essentially undead Bretonians, but
Yeah,
really.
that's why Bretonnia isn't in the Age of Sigmar. It's because they were taken over by the Realm of Death.
I didn't know that, but suck it, Bretonians. But all the Flesh Eater Court stuff is allies to all of the Legion stuff, which is pretty cool. So you can still use all that stuff with the new Legions of Nagash book and the Grand Host and all that stuff, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And then Malign Portents, you have pretty much like how we had a summer 40k campaign. That's what Malign Portents is. It's GW's run campaign for Age of Sigmar.
It's like the Fate of Connor, right?
Right, exactly. But it has
real.
It's got a book with it, and it's got some missions in there, and I want to explore it a little bit more. Right now, they're doing like almost like an escalation kind of a portion to it with start collecting boxes where week one you buy your start collecting box, you build it, you paint it, and you start playing games with it, and you add over time. So they're doing a lot of cool stuff with over at GW with Malign Portents right now.
You know what, though? I have to admit, my hype level is pretty low for it. I'm getting into Age of Sigmar right now, but after watching what happened with the Fate of Connor, like where it was like everybody got so excited, and I felt like they did very little with it once it launched. Like it felt sort of hard to get to some of the information, and they weren't really they weren't publishing results out to the groups and like on like more of their social media sites. And I felt that it was like, wow, if I really want to find the results, I have to like dig into this like a smaller website that I frequently forget to check. And I was like really excited. Exactly. I think that it really started with a bang and ended with like sort of like a dull pop. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Imperium won Fate of Connor, and it was not to much fanfare.
Yeah, not fanfare, and also some of the missions, like when I was playing them, I was like, wait, my opponent just has to like get enemies across his line? So, I mean, if you're playing against, like, I mean, I don't know what situation demands this, but if you were playing against somebody maybe who you didn't know and you weren't ready for a friendly game, you know, once you could just be like, oh, I'm just taking a group of bikes, turbo boosting them, and I win.
Man, I still remember that game. I took Genestealer Colt, and I just Colt ambushed into the back of the table behind my opponent and just ran off the board.
Right, just that's it. That's all you needed to really do. And, you know, I think that somebody must have really dropped the ball on the mission writing and at the same time the publication of results. Because and also, by the way, I really think leaving Xenos on the sidetrack, like,
yeah, that was kind of a dick move.
Begging for scraps.
Yeah, if you were a Xenos player, it was literally just, what side do you want to piss off?
The right answer was
that was
all of
basically
them. I switched up every other week. I'd just be like, I won this week, I'm going to take points away from Imperium. I won this week, I'm going to take points away from Chaos.
But I think the problem with like putting all the Xenos stuff in would be all the different Xenos factions have different goals.
Yep.
Either you're lumping them into like one group, which would be like just as lame, or suddenly you have like 6 or 7 different factions all now that you have to account for.
And then you get into
like
issues of
complicated.
representation.
Go ahead.
Well, you get into issues of representation too. So you've got like, you know, so Chaos has what? Demons, Thousand Suns, Chaos Space Marines. They've got like what? Technically 5, 6 different factions. Whereas and Imperium has a dozen different factions, whereas Tyranids have Tyranids and Genestealer Cult.
And yeah, well, Eldar have 3, so they're not too bad off, I guess. But
But see, I feel like that's where like the representation is only critical if you're trying to say, if you're trying to bifurcate the process and say, hey, A wins or B wins, right? Like if you abandon the idea that there has to be even teams, I think the idea of telling stories through massive amounts of games becomes a hell of a lot more fun, right? Like, but I understand the need, especially from a GW narrative campaign, to split things like that is so they can celebrate either an Imperium thing or a Chaos thing and goat the other, the other team against one another, and it creates like cool, like social thing at a distance. But, I mean, to me, the limitations that puts on storytelling for all other armies is just, it's not worth it being able to celebrate A team or B team kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like Malign Portents is going to make it a little difficult in that sense because it's so death centric. I think it's going to. I mean, unless you're really setting up death as just being the bad guy, and then everyone else fights against it, which could kind of be is kind of semi what they're looking at. But it just, I don't know. Either way, any kind of a campaign is going to be somewhat difficult to throw off. I think this is still going to be interesting. I like the new models that they came out with it. I like that they work for each of the different overall grand alliances. Like Order has one, Death has one, Chaos has one. Destruction has one.
Yeah.
So, and they can be, they're a keyword listed item for any army within that group, which is kind of neat. Like the Order one, for instance, I was looking at the Orator or whatever. He's kind of like Stormcast Eternal kind of dude, but I can take him as a leader choice, an HQ choice in my Karajan Overlords army, and it still count as like a Karajan Overlords HQ. So I thought that was kind of a neat aspect to this. So, like, even though he's a Stormcast guy, I can include him in my Kharadron Overlord's army and not lose my Skyport bonuses. And he not have to be taken as an ally.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool figures that just came out with Malign Portents. I mean, I think the that fungoid
Fungus Goblin is awesome.
Fungus Goblin, yeah, I think it's like something like Mullet is his last name. It's really weird, but Skank Mullet or some shit. He looks so fucking weird, right?
Oh yeah,
So there's some cool stuff that came out with Malign Portents, I do have to say.
And I do like a lot of the model structure it looks like they're going into. It almost feels like they're going back, especially with Age of Sigmar, with certain items. They're going back to that, all right, we can be a little serious with some stuff, but we're going to make it a little batshit crazy, too.
We're going to be goofy as hell at the same time.
And I like that mixture. I mean, as much as I enjoy 40K and the grim darkness of the future and blah, 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 I think having that little bit of fun with it sometimes, it really goes back to the old Rogue Trader era, 1st edition era, 2nd edition era, where they still had some fun with it. You had squats, which there's no clock anymore. I can say it as many goddamn times as I want. Squats. But
I don't know. The model's not out yet. Fourth World could always change their mind.
I don't care, man. The clock broke. I saw the video. I seen it. So that's with that. The other thing I just wanted to mention before we move forward, Daughters of Khaine looks really interesting. I know one of our members, Panda, is super into them. He's going to be getting them, so I'm really interested to see how he does with them and how they work out. And for anyone that is a dark elf-centric player for Age of Sigmar, it's really going to be an interesting concept, I think.
I'm more interested in the whole elf pirate thing, or the underwater elves.
Oh, dude,
Underwater elves.
all I can say about that is if I didn't start Death already, I would be so on board with it.
Do both. Have 2 armies.
So
I don't have that much money.
I have 2 armies in Age of Sigmar. I'm not going past that. However, I feel hearkened to the only reason I'm not a big elf fan as a pureblood dwarf. I am not a big elf fan, but something about sea elves harkens back to that whole Cthulhu mythos that's like tugging at me a little bit there. So like a Deep Ones kind of race looks really cool. So I don't know. I mean, we'd have to look into that a little bit more and see what it is.
Also, looking at the models they came out with for the Daughters of Khaine, I can only imagine how these things are going to look when they come out with them.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I mean, think about how Fulgrim is going to look with half of a snake body when he comes out. It's going to be stellar. So it just gives me a lot of faith with what GW is going to be working with.
Absolutely. So, to go on, since we were to make sure we're on time with everything, some events coming up I wanted to make mention of. First, I want to talk about the BWG Age of Sigmar ladder campaign, and then we're going to talk about Call of Behemoth, because we might have a little bit more with Call of Behemoth with the big event coming up next. But, Sean, I want you to give me an update for all of us in terms of the Age of Sigmar ladder campaign, and most importantly, I want everyone to know, and I want you to announce it, who is the current champion of the Age of Sigmar ladder campaign.
Wow, you're really laying it on thick here, Jared. Jared, you did actually beat me about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I was the champion, and Jared beat me and dropped me down to number 3, and then I played a game and went up a level. So now I'm second. I'm number 2 contender for the current rankings, whereas Matt Sheets is our number 1 contender with his what is his
Ogres?
Ogres.
Yeah, it's Ogres. And, dude, it's been awesome. He's got Ogre. Jared, your graduate overlords are pretty tough, man. All that shooting is nasty. So it was just all of my bloodletters just kept eating shots all game.
Our game was very close, though. You had of possibilities to beat me on that on multiple occasions.
I think I was hitting on 2s at one point with my skull cannons, and still wasn't able to hit enough with against your guys. So it was definitely a challenge. I'm gonna challenge you again to come back up and try to take that championship away. But I'm gonna let somebody else get a chance to try to get up there and do it. I'm sure Matt will be chomping at the bit to try to go after you.
Especially since he beat me earlier in the ladder campaign.
Yeah. And then we had just this past weekend, Bill West, who is like ranked 12th, number 12 contender, traded in some hobby points to challenge his brother Jeff, and he was able to take the number 7 contender spot from Jeff. So Jeff's going to drop in the rankings pretty hard. And
You don't have to remind me.
It's all right though, Jeff. You can come back. You can challenge Don, or maybe see if someone else or like Alex Pennington wants to get a battle in. If you can
I can't play Alex because apparently he can only play on days that I can't.
Oh really?
Yeah.
How convenient.
It's the best way to secure your place in the ladder.
Or go inactive real quick because you can only play 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, if he can't get a game in by the end of this month, he's going to drop to inactive. He's going to have to do something to stay active. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, I will say there's some movement in the middle.
I will say John's Fire Slayers are insanely powerful, way more powerful than I was initially expecting.
Well, in team games, they're brutal. You've proven that. You guys teaming up against me and Murphy, you guys pretty much bitched us up pretty hard. But it was a fun game just to do it.
That was a blast.
Yeah, casual 2v2 the other day. So Don really wants to look for team AOS events that he can team up with you and take it on the road. So
I would love to do that. I think a team AOS event would be a lot of fun. I would love almost like a mega battle AOS event, especially with any groups nearby that are heavy into Age of Sigmar. So
I remember we were all talking about doing a big AOS event with the different Grand Alliances.
Yeah.
Which would be super cool, and I'd still be all on board with it.
Yeah, I was talking with Jeff a couple of days, probably a week or so ago, about doing like a 4-on-4 or maybe a 3-on-3 Grand Alliance team tournament. It's just like almost like a round robin where you have 4 teams of 3 or 4 people, and you play every team once, and then whoever walks away with the most wins, wins for their Grand Alliance for the day. And with 4 Grand Alliances, you only need 3 games. It'll be a fun time. So maybe something simple like that. Maybe make it a little casual. Get some beers.
Something for the future. Yes, something for the future. And anyone interested in Age of Sigmar can join right in. How long does this ladder campaign go till, Sean?
So the ladder campaign is going to go for 3 more months. So we're going to end it in May. And then we're going to take a little break. And then we're going to either do a Season 2 of Age of Sigmar for the ladder, or maybe if this is positively, taken from everybody, and they want to try it with 40K, maybe we do 40K, and we split it up to do 5 months of AOS and 5 months of 40K. Who knows? I mean, everybody seems very positive with the ladder campaign, and I'm pretty sure we've got way more people into 40K than we do AOS, so maybe we can try to gather some people from that.
And maybe we could switch the script, since right now, look at me doing my transitions, right now we're doing our 40K campaign, our narrative 40K campaign, and our Age of Sigmar ladder campaign, or ladder thing. We could switch that around to a 40K ladder and an Age of Sigmar narrative campaign.
We could.
What a seamless transition. You are a comptroller of the highest caliber, my friend.
Just incredible.
I'm just going to throw this out there. He is going backwards from the outline that I put together. So
you're damn right. I'm making it work. So Carl and Murphy, give us a heads up. We got the final massive battle for Behemoth this weekend, right?
Oh baby, yeah, we do. So I have not yet released the pairings for the big apocalypse battle, and also I have not released the kind of precursor fluff because you all don't necessarily know why you're teaming up with who you're teaming up with, and why this is all coming to a head in our grand finale APOC game. Where we are in the story, as far as the campaign, is the Call of Behemoth went out, and warlords from all over the sector found out about this miracle substance that was on this previously undiscovered or uncared about planet. Everyone rushed to control it. They've been battling like crazy to control it. We have some factions and some warlords who have been in control of this precious resource. If none of you have paid attention to the reward for this last mission, which was to control the mana well, there are going to be some ridiculous characters at this apocalypse game, because I'm just going off of memory here, but I think it's something like your reward for winning the last mission was to choose one character and give it something like +3 strength and +3 toughness and like +4 wounds, or something totally preposterous, which in the context... Right. Yeah, in the context of an apocalypse game, could mean a whole lot, or it could mean nothing at all. But it's going to be really fun to see some crazy shit happening. I'm just praying I get to see like a T7 guardsman run up against the Demon Prince and just knock his brains out.
Inquisitor Blackwell is absolutely. I mean, if any of you happen to check my fluff narrative that I've been writing up to this point, he has been engulfed by the mana wells at this point, which managed to strike away the Space Marine army that was coming towards them. So I think he did
psychically kill a man for doubting him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and Murphy can speak to kind of the overarching story he's been doing of tying everyone's individual stories together. So big props to you on that, Murphy. The only thing I'll say further about this big APOC game is that there is a giant surprise coming that I guarantee you none of you are prepared for, and will completely blindside your warlords. So it will be an interesting finale. So stay strapped in, because shit's going to get weird.
Nice.
And also, so this is going to be a really fun end of the campaign. So whoever ends up, quote-unquote, winning the campaign, where it's not going to be a huge monetary reward, but we will idolize your warlord through a wonderful sketch of him and his greatest accomplishment through the battle. Our friend who's going to be doing the art will be studying and listening and taking your request and doing his sincerest best work to make your character feel immortalized through art.
Nice. So I have to ask, is there anything you can release to the public now about the Call of Behemoth campaign? Teams, anything. Is there anything you can give us a front line right now for anyone that's listening, that's going to be going to this thing, that's going to be seeing this thing? What do we got?
I can say the teams I don't think will be as too much of a surprise, as there's a pretty clear dividing line as to how factions might shake out intuitively. What I can say about the kind of grand story arc is that what you think has been happening on Behemoth this entire time might not be the case. Things are not as they appear to be.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So are we able to get teams out of this? I'm gonna push it.
No, not yeah. If I had them, dude, I'd give them to you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you had them on hand. Okay.
No.
Cool. All right. So super excited for this weekend. If anyone is available, if you want to come down and just check something out and see it, we're going to be having the Call of Behemoth Master Battle, the big one, the Waterloo of 40K.
The Fate of Behemoth, as it's known.
The Fate of Behemoth, yes. The Fate of Behemoth at Gamers Heaven in Phoenixville. What does it start? 10 o'clock? 10 to 4? Is that what we're looking at?
I believe that's what I put without looking at the event in front of me. I think it's, this Saturday, 10 to 4.
This Saturday, March 3rd, 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock. So be there, pop in, say hi to the guys at Gamers Heaven as well. See some awesome-looking models because, for those of you that are not aware of the different rules for the final apocalyptic battle, and Carl, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but all of the items pretty much have to be painted, or else there's going to be some very stringent negatives against them.
Penalties.
Big props to Jason Culp for what I think is a totally brilliant way to penalize not fully painted models, which is, so there's a hard ban on gray plastic and just primer. We want to elevate it to at least above that level. But if you don't hit a tournament standard of 3 colors in good faith in your stuff, all of your not fully painted models are going to be +1 to hit for the duration of the Apocalypse game.
Which, awesome thought. Like you said, big props to Jason Culp for coming up with that idea. I think it's really going to elevate the entire Apocalypse event to a whole nother level, because anyone that's been in an APOC event, 9 times out of 10, a lot of times you're seeing a lot of unpainted gray plastic, just because people are pulling out stuff they've never had, or it's stuff that they don't normally have enough painted to even pull off some kind of an APOC event. So I think coming out and seeing this, it's going to be a really interesting thing to see. So I would highly advise anyone that just wants to pop out, take a look, do so, and the rest of us will be there playing.
Yep.
That's right.
Can I say I hope to see a Lord of Skulls?
I have no idea. We'd have to check with some of the Chaos people.
Murphy, can you bring your kid in a stroller and we can just give him like a Nerf gun or something? He'll count as our Lord of Skulls.
Yeah,
I don't think he's got anything painted.
Dude, can he be an Imperator Titan? That would be awesome.
You
Well,
might see a Harridan. That might be my project for Wednesday.
Ooh,
All right,
okay, cool.
all right. Very
Love it.
nice. Very nice.
If there's any Chaos players that want to borrow it, I have a Lord of Skulls that Sam painted up really nicely, and I'd be willing to let it be borrowed because I have my own Lord of War that I'm bringing.
Ooh.
Really tempting.
And I know what that is. I'm excited to see Sean's.
It's gonna be good. I can't wait. Carl knows what it is too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be pretty great.
So any other thoughts? Anything else you guys want to mention? Talk about? Any notice? I have some housekeeping stuff at the end, but I just wanted to throw it out to you guys as an overall. Anything you guys are thinking about? What are you working on? That kind of stuff?
Like I just said, I think my project this week is going to be to try to rebuild my Harridan before this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to be making sure all my Lehman Russ are ready. You're getting a full armored company.
Yeah,
Full armored company.
I've got to make sure the pins are correct on my Lord of War and get him painted. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton of hobby stuff to do.
What do you got?
I'm going to be changing square bases for skinks over to circle bases. Nice. I have to clip out a mold injection line from the Dread Saurian. And I am going to be... there was something else I was going to do, and I can't quite remember it right now. Oh, but the big project is to paint my entire Lizardman army by the end of summer.
Very cool.
Good luck.
Oh,
I know I've been working a lot on my Black Templars right now. I've been building them out a lot more as my fun narrative army. And I'm waiting for my second Age of Sigmar army to come in. I will be starting the Philadelphia Iron Johns.
Nice.
Dude, you told me a little bit about the concept, and I'm so on board with this idea.
Yep. I'm doing a full Iron Jaws army. I'm painting them in the color of my beloved Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to be giving them numbers on the armor where applicable, where I can. And I also would like to get a small unit of Night Goblins so I can throw out some Philly Fanatics out of the Night Goblin Lords. So just to kind of mix a couple of sports things together, I think it would be fun.
But only one of them can have a ring, right? Because Philly only has one ring.
You
Damn
mean
right.
Killy Fanatics, right?
The Killy Fanatic, yeah.
Dude, you could get some like some Slaneshi demonettes and like proxy and some scouts as like cheerleaders or something like that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Some cheerleader scouts. I've got once I get my Wyvern, my war boss on Wyvern, it's definitely going to be war boss Doug Wyvernson. So he'll be coming out as soon as I'm able to get a Wyvern. But until that time, we'll have to handle for my my war chanters, arson tents, and Dick Souls.
Oh god, I'm such a sucker for these awful dad jokes.
They work though.
They really do.
All right. So with that, just a little bit of housekeeping to promote other events in the area. Like we had said, we're going to try and do Rogue Trader events the third Saturday of every month. We're also going to attempt to do Age of Sigmar events the first Saturday every month if we can get it off and running, if we can get enough people, all at Gamers Heaven in Phoenixville. Also, always want to do a shout-out to Model Bonnet Hobbies in the Boyertown area, who always helps us out in getting us the best models as quickly as humanly possible. Shout-out to our other gaming groups around the area. So Burke's Winter Blast, Burke's Winter Blast is done. Burke's Spring Assault will be coming up in May, where they're going to be running two different events. They're doing a 2,000-point GT-style tournament, and then they're also doing a 1,000-point per person team-style order versus disorder narrative event. So both are going to be really interesting coming up, I believe, May 19th. And then some other podcasts. I wanted to give a shout-out to our podcast brethren over at Gamers Heaven. Panda and Sam do a War of Heaven podcast Tuesday nights at 5. They talk mainly about Warhammer items. So log into a lot of their stuff goes through Twitch. So log in to see the Gamers Heaven Twitch page. You'll see them there. I also was a special guest at their last Gamers Heaven After Hours podcast event, where we talked about other nerd items and nerd hobbies, such as a neat versus match between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. So thanks to all of those individuals. If you are an interest of ever coming onto our podcast, please let any of us know, and we'll see what we can do about fitting somebody in to always get a nice little rotating cast. That being said, I want to thank my own circle within the Grudgecast for their help with all of this, obviously. Bill West, Sean Feather, Sam Lucidi, Carl Guillermo Bella. I love saying the Guillermo, I'm sorry. Jeff West, Chris Murphy. I said you Chris Murphy, right? And Sam Lucidi, I said all you guys? All right, perfect.
Good.
So just wanted to get through all of our people. Thank you
and Jeff West.
again. Oh, I said Jeff. Did I say Jeff?
Did you?
Yeah, but
Oh,
you can say me
wow.
twice. It's cool.
Yeah,
You know,
just say
that's
Jeff.
Good. Do it twice.
I will say, Jeff and I were unable to get our grudge match in this month, unfortunately. So we'll roll into the next month. My Karajan Overlords against Jeff's Flesh Eater Course. Battle to the death. Get it? Literally, because he's playing a death
Again.
army. But it's not going to go to the death. It's going to go entirely to the Dwarven Horde once again. And that's all. That's all we got for you tonight. We will be back on again next month again around the same time frame. And we'll hear from you guys then. Have a great night.
All right.
Take it easy.
See you guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.